So I've got my predictions here for some of the free agents that will be perhaps testing the market, perhaps not, during this offseason. So I am predicting where they will go, giving you guys some destinations here to monitor. Let's take a look at guy number one, Teddy Bridgewater, quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. Didn't really see much of him this year, right? You may recall he went in during that Cincinnati Bengals game, and threw an interception, whatever. Here's the deal. 2014 first-round pick, and the jury is still out in terms of Teddy Bridgewater being that franchise quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings have to figure out if he is the guy, and that's why I have him staying with Minnesota. They have to give him a full sample size here of 2018 starts to see what he can do. And it's really a tough situation here because, yes, you have Sam Bradford and you have Case Keenum, and those two could be heading out, or maybe one of them could be staying, and maybe Bridgewater will have to outplay Bradford or Keenum during camp to kind of get that starting slot again. But I really think it comes down to, will there be return on this investment, right? Will there be ROI, as they say in the business world? You put that investment in Teddy Bridgewater, drafting him in the first round, will you get that return? And that's what I am wondering about, and I think that's what the Vikings leadership wants to figure out here. Look, Bridgewater proved he's a playoff quarterback. In 2015, took the Vikings to the playoffs. And if it wasn't for Blair Walsh, who knows what could have happened. So definitely a unique quarterback situation here for the Minnesota Vikings. Like I said, with all three of these quarterbacks becoming free agents. But for Vikings fans out there, don't worry, because I have Teddy Bridgewater remaining in Minnesota with the Minnesota Vikings. All right, next up, Andrew Norwell, guard for the Carolina Panthers, started all of 2017, named to the All-Pro and the third-ranked guard, according to Pro Football Focus. In an NFL era where it seems like offensive lines have stunk, like overall play I'm talking about has been really bad, Andrew Norwell is going to be highly coveted, especially for a lot of teams out there that have their fair share of issues on the interior of their offensive lines, and they have a lot of cap space. Well, guess what? The Indianapolis Colts fall into that category. They have a lot of cap space, and they need some help in the interior of that offensive line because the guards there were not very good this season. So in that vein, I could see the Colts going ahead and trying to get an Andrew Norwell, and then maybe going to the draft, getting a Quentin Nelson. I know it'd be drafting him very, very high, but if they want to be serious here about, protecting Andrew Luck and running the football and actually having a balanced offense, it starts with the inside. It starts with left guard, center, and right guard. You have your center, Ryan Kelly, right? Of course, he got hurt last season, and you didn't see much of him. But coming back healthy, you got him at center. If you go ahead and get Andrew Norwell and then draft a Quentin Nelson, that is a pretty good offensive interior. And again, you got to build from the inside out if you want to protect your franchise quarterback and Andrew Luck. I hope Chris Ballard understands that, the GM there. I'm sure Josh McDaniels, the quote-unquote future head coach here for the Colts, understands that as well. Andrew Norwell is going to get a lot of phone calls, though. And I know the Panthers are going to try their best here to keep him because, protecting Cam Newton is obviously important. And the Panthers are kind of in the middle of the pack in terms of cap space, around $22.5 million in projected cap space for 2018. It's not a daunting scenario like it would be for the Chiefs or Eagles or Steelers, but I just think that Norwell is going to get a lot of big, fat offers for his services on the offensive line. And there are problems for the Colts. There are problems for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team that has its fair share of needs at guard and has a lot of cap space. So I could see Norwell, an elite run blocker and solid pass protector, heading to Indianapolis to start retooling that offensive line there for the Indianapolis Colts. All right, how about Case Keenum, quarterback for the Vikings? He is going to the Big Toaster, Arizona. I've got him going to the Arizona Cardinals here, taking a leap of faith in a sense. But if my projection here goes along with what I'm thinking, right? If it actually comes to fruition that Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the starter in 2018, Case Keenum is not going to want to back up Teddy Bridgewater, especially after the season that he had. All right, so a couple of reasons here. First of all, bye-bye Pat Shurmur. He's going to the Giants to be their head coach. And we have seen before, quarterbacks getting those big contracts, and there's a little bit of turnover, and maybe they're just a flash in the pan, and they don't really live up to their investment. I could see a scenario here where if the Vikings kind of sign a long-term deal here with Case Keenum, it could be a situation where because Pat Shurmur left and the offense kind of has to readjust things, that Case Keenum could regress in 2018. And I think it's best for Case, it's best for the Vikings to go their separate ways. I think Keenum would fit well in Arizona. They are doing their fair share of changes as well to the head coach position. Obviously, Steve Wilks is the new HC there, and there's a lot of turnover going on in terms of the assistants. Steve Wilks is kind of reestablishing a new staff, and one of the big-time names, Jason Betcher, defensive coordinator, well, he's gone, and he's headed to the Giants, and according to reports, so you have the turnover in Arizona. Maybe Case Keenum could do better in the big toaster there with a couple of good wide receivers and John Brown and Larry Fitzgerald if he doesn't retire or get traded or whatever. It seems like he's thrown around in terms of potential transactions out there. But I think Keenum is probably going to leave Minnesota and head to the Arizona Cardinals. Again, leap of faith here. I know it's somewhat of a long shot. The Cardinals don't have the most cap space out there, but I could see them restructuring some deals with some players already on their team and then going ahead and grabbing Case Keenum because they need a quarterback, guys. And I don't know if the Cardinals are going to have a good quarterback fall to them in the first round of that draft. So there's Case Keenum. Next here, LaMarcus Joyner, defensive back for the LA Rams. He should be the priority for LA. A good amount of cap space here for 2018 for the Rams, $43.5 million approximately. Joyner had a fantastic season, and they'll likely have to cut their losses here if they do re-sign LaMarcus Joyner because Sammy Watkins is going to be a free agent and some other players as well. So I think the priority for LA is to keep that secondary in place to the best of your ability. Joyner, John Johnson was great in his rookie year. I talked about him earlier. Troy Hill was very solid as well. So if you keep that front line for the Rams intact and you keep that secondary intact too, that's going to mean a lot for deep playoff runs because, of course, you need a good defense, you need a good pass rush, and a couple of aggressive players in the secondary. LaMarcus Joyner falls into that realm. And, of course, Wade Phillips doing Wade Phillips things. Guy's a fantastic defensive mind. I'm a big Wade Phillips guy. So there's Joyner. Pro Football Focus's third-ranked safety. I have him staying with the Rams. All right, how about this guy? Jarvis Landry, predicted destination, going to the 49ers, the 19th-ranked wide receiver, according to Pro Football Focus. An absolute target monster. It's unbelievable he actually had 112 receptions with a shade under 1,000 yards. It's kind of crazy. And the Dolphins are essentially botching this whole situation here because Landry and his agent are trying to reach out to the Dolphins, and the Dolphins, well, are not really responding to their DMs right now. And I think eventually Jarvis is going to get frustrated here and just test the free agent market. And I think the 49ers will be a good location for him. The Niners have the most projected cap space, according to overthecap.com, for 2018, roughly $115 million. They need a true number one wide receiver. I think Landry is a true number one wide receiver, by the way, even though he plays primarily in the slot. He's not an outside guy. He's not a red zone threat per se, but he is a rhythm wide receiver. Jimmy Garoppolo can get into so many rhythms with this guy. I can see it already. And plus, you don't need an outside deep threat. You got Goodwin there on the outside if you're talking about the 49ers here. So, like I said, Dolphins, they botched this, and I think they're going to mess it up at the end of the day. Look, he's not going to give you 1,500 yards, Jarvis Landry, but I think he's going to be a fantastic guy to have on any offense out there in the NFL. I have him going to the Bay Area for the San Francisco 49ers. All right, next up, this is a big one. Kirk Cousins, where is he headed? I'm going with the Denver Broncos. Everything I'm reading, everything I'm hearing, it's all pointing towards a really bad ending for the Washington Redskins and Kirk Cousins. So rumors indicate that John Elway and the Denver Broncos are gearing up for a big-time run at Kirk. And if so, by the way, that could mean Paxton Lynch is likely the odd man out, and he could, be looking for another team. And Cousins, look, 2017, a solid year, but it wasn't his best year, and there was a lot of turnover with the offensive line. Morgan Moses at right tackle got hurt here and there, and Trent Williams was banged up as well. And then you have some chemistry problems on the outside at the wide receiver position with Terrell Pryor and Jamison Crowder, etc. But all things considered, not a bad season for Cousins. Is he a guy that can single-handedly win you games? No, but he doesn't have to be. Because you have an offensive coordinator now in Denver with Bill Musgrave. I think that's a better fit than the previous OC, Mike McCoy. Mike McCoy has a really complex offensive scheme. Musgrave is more of a West Coast / power run game kind of offense. And I think that fits into what Kirk Cousins likes to do. He likes the little 3-step drops, 5-step drops, get the ball out of your hands. He likes to play action too. Likes handing the football off. Who doesn't if you have a good running back? And so I think this is a good fit for Kirk. And by the way, if the Redskins tag Cousins, it'd make 0 sense because it'd be really expensive. As you see that number right there, $34.5 million. Kirk Cousins has voiced many times that he wants security over kicking the can down the road and just doing, franchise tag after franchise tag. I think this could be the last straw here for Kirk Cousins. He will go to the Denver Broncos and play for John Elway. And I think he'll be a pretty darn good quarterback out there, especially if the Broncos address the offensive line in the draft. All right, there is Kirk. Let's get to DeMarcus Lawrence here. Where is he headed? Well, he's not going anywhere, guys. He's staying in Big D. I think he'll likely get the franchise tag here. This one's easy, really, in terms of projecting what's going to happen. Unbelievable season for the Dallas Cowboys. Looks to be the cornerstone of that line if he can continue to play like that. And that said, he probably will get the franchise tag, but the Cowboys, not a great cap space situation for them. You look at how much space they actually have, $18.5 million projected for 2018. They also have to start thinking about a long-term deal for this guy because, I'm talking about 2019, 2020, et cetera, because you want him on that front line. You want him to be part of that front four for the Dallas Cowboys, creating pressures and all that, because also you have a younger secondary, and a younger secondary can look better, especially if you cut Orlando Scandrick. It's going to be really young. Can get better if Lawrence continues to be disruptive on that front seven. So he's going to stay with the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. How about Le'Veon Bell, running back for the Steelers? Really an odd situation here, right? You heard retirement talk and sitting out the entire season and all this stuff. He's not going anywhere. He's going to get franchise tagged by the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're all going to be done with this. It almost seemed like a threat when he said that he was going to retire if they franchise tagged Le'Veon, but sorry, buddy, you're going to get the tag, and you're going to stay in Pittsburgh, and you're going to have to deal with it. And he's going to get paid a good amount of money as a running back right now, where running backs these days aren't as highly coveted as past NFL eras. So Le'Veon, part of the Killer Bees, all that stuff, Big Ben, Bell, and Antonio Brown. Of course, the Steelers need this guy if they want to continue to improve and get to a Super Bowl, because Ben Roethlisberger is not getting any younger, guys. And you saw some pretty rough performances from him this season. And, yeah, he was adequate in the playoffs. But Le'Veon Bell is the train that makes the Steelers' offense go in terms of the run game. And they need him to come back. And they're going to franchise tag him and move along. And I think Le'Veon will not actually sit out or retire. That's ridiculous. So he's staying in Pittsburgh. How about Jimmy G? He will be staying in San Francisco with the 49ers. Look, you don't bring this guy over in a trade and, let him walk into free agency. John Lynch is not going to let that happen. He's not going anywhere. I say you tag him, you give him a long-term deal, whatever you're feeling. The 49ers have a lot of cap space to spend. If they think Jimmy G is their guy, if they are fully invested, they are impressed, they're ready to roll with this quarterback here, give him a long-term deal. Sure, why not? you got the room to do it in terms of cap space, but if you want to give him the franchise tag and, say, all right, Jimmy, we're going to give you a full season here in Santa Clara, try to get it done, that makes sense too, kind of a prove-it type of contract. So there are two flips of the coin to it. I'm not really sure which direction the 49ers are going to go. A long-term deal actually could be cheaper in the long run, but then again, it's a roll of the dice. But Jimmy Garoppolo, all things considered, will stay with the San Francisco 49ers. And then Drew Brees. Where is he headed? Well, he's just going to stay in New Orleans. And I think this is going to be a really intriguing storyline to watch because there could be a scenario where Drew Brees wants that kind of midterm security, like a 2-year, 3-year deal, 4-year deal, something like that. And the Saints are not really ready to do that or don't want to do that, and they'd rather just kind of give Drew Brees a 1-year deal, kind of kick the can that way and see how he performs as he gets older. So that's where I could see some frustrations because you have, the Saints saying, all right, well, Drew, you're getting up there in age and, we have to look ahead to the future, but we'll give you a 1-year deal. While Brees is like, well, I want security. I want to stay here. I love this place. Give me 3 years. So I could see some frustrations, maybe some drama with contract negotiations, but he's not going anywhere. I do have at the bottom there, Denver could pursue. And there have been rumors out there that, yeah, maybe the Broncos could make a run at Drew Brees if indeed contract talks really boil over and Brees gets really frustrated, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm projecting Drew to stay with the New Orleans Saints. All right, guys, so those are some headliner free agents and projected destinations. Let's recap my list. So Teddy Bridgewater, I've got him staying with the Vikings. Andrew Norwell, guard, goes to Indianapolis to play for the Colts. Case Keenum goes to the Arizona Cardinals. LaMarcus Joyner stays with the Rams, at least he should. Jarvis Landry heads to the San Francisco 49ers to play for Kyle Shanahan. Kirk Cousins goes to the Denver Broncos. DeMarcus Lawrence stays right where he is with the Dallas Cowboys. Le'Veon Bell will stay with the Steelers. Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, will stay with the 49ers. And Drew Brees will remain with the New Orleans Saints.